You're listening to Mr. Liverpool himself, Frank Carlyle, exclusively on Mersey Radio.
Good evening, everybody. That was absolutely wonderful, and that was Tell Shannon and Runaway. That reminds me of going into the Locarno. I don't know about you fellas. Now, let me introduce my studio guests. I think, you know what? I said, as soon as Marc Anthony walked in, I said, I didn't expect you. And I'll tell you for why I'm saying this, listeners. It's simply because Marc is a big red, a massive red. And I thought he'd be down in Swansea at this very moment. And when he walked in, I was just quite surprised. Good evening, Marc.
Good evening, Frank. I must admit, I thought I would be there as well.
Because, you know, and it did shock me, by the way. And also in the studio we have the wonderful man himself, Mr. Cambridge, Ed Gilchrist. Good evening, Ed.
Hi, Frank. Nice to see you. Hi, Marc. Good to see you both.
Good. And, you know, we've got a great show tonight, fellas. I'll tell you for why. Who we've got on. We've got David Johnson on. You know, he's from the University of Colorado, State University of Colorado. And also he'll be talking about the Native American. So that should be a very interesting talk about these particular people who, when Columbus finally got to America sometime, they were all there, you know. So, and you know what I'm going to talk about as well? I'm going to ask him about Pocahontas. Now, Pocahontas, obviously, you think that Pocahontas married a fellow by the name of John Smith. She didn't. She married a fellow by the name of John Rolfe, and it was the animation of Hollywood that decided he was just a bland man. What he was a merchant in tobacco. He grew tobacco to ship over, you know, to sell, obviously. And he was just a bland man. Anyway, John Smith is a big hero of mine. He's a big hero of mine. So Hollywood decided to have Pocahontas, you know, when they made the animation film of her, marrying John Smith. Anyway, I'll be talking about that. I hope he knows about Pocahontas anyway. But he will, I'm sure. And also we've got Derek Shelmerdine. And Derek is a fantastic author about the Merseybeat era. But not just about the Merseybeat era, but also about different bands, different individuals and everything else throughout the years. And tonight we'll be talking about the Drifters, Benny King. Can I tell you something about Benny King? I had a drink with him, me, Benny King, Billy Paul and Percy Sledge. Me, three of them. And they were just absolutely magnificent people. Anyway, I'd just like to say hello to Marc Kinnish. He's listening in. And he sent a message, which I'll read out in a few moments. And also Carol Liptrot, who's listening in. She said, I'm listening in, Frank, you know, so she's listening in. Good evening, Marc and Carol, and we'll get them all now. Michael Carter, he says, I'll be watching the match and listening in, lads, you know, so he'll be listening in and a few more, obviously.
I'm sure someone will text us some scores, won't he, Frank?
Well, it's 0-0 just at the moment, I can tell you.
Well, 0-0, he's looking at it. We can't move on without this football. But anyway, talking about football, what do you think of the owners now? And the news that Salah is actually being eyed up with a possible, well, probable, it's not possible, it'll be probable, swoop for him in the summer by Real Madrid.
I think we've all been expecting it. It's ever since, as we were talking between ourselves before, ever since the Americans come on the scene with their Moneyball philosophy about how you run a football club. Yeah. Well, as a football club, we've taken a step back as a football business,
Yeah.
we've obviously gone a bit forward.
Yeah.
Because, they have increased sales and revenues and
But
worldwide fan
you know,
base.
what, can I come in there and say this? John Carlyle has said, "Good evening, boys. One eye on the telly and an ear on you lot."
Right, John?
Hi, John.
So anyway, no, I'd just like to come in there because, as you said about increasing the sales of what? Because no matter what, there's a 20
Dunkin's
years
Donuts. Apparently, they've gone about 20% up since they sponsored Liverpool.
Oh, right.
So,
It's just
if that's
crazy.
how you measure football success, well,
I thought you meant, the sales of like season ticket holders, because it hasn't really. There's still a 20-year waiting list, which is absolutely horrendous for the size of Liverpool, just to have a 54,000 seater capacity.
Let me say something controversial here, just for a change.
Go on, Ed.
Yeah, just for a change.
Just for the change.
I think that American businesses, particularly American businesses, will look at an investment in a football club as an investment in any business. So they'll start off a business, they'll buy it good price, they'll have a goal, let's say 5, 10, 15-year goal even, but they'll have a goal which will be to make X money in that time from that business. They won't care that when they pull out of that business, it's actually no longer what it was when they bought it, as long as they make money in the whole scheme of things.
Okay.
And that's what they'll do. So, we've seen businesses, like Richard Branson's a good example. When he first started in business, he would start a business, make some money, go bust, start another business, make some money, go bust. And that's how he made his fortune to begin with, isn't it? He actually didn't care about really the people who worked in those businesses, because they were all a bit like him. They just wanted to make a quick buck and spit it out when it wasn't working anymore.
Same as Donald Trump.
And I think that's what's happening with Liverpool Football Club. They're prepared to spit it out when they finish with it, when they've milked it, because it's just another business.
I think they've jumped in. They've seen what was happening with football. If you look at the new Sky deals, there's another one coming online in a few months' time. The money, you just add so many notes on the end of it, and you think to yourself, where's it going to stop? But I think when we talk about our club, we're coming from the basis that we actually live here and we go to Anfield. When the Americans think of their club, they're talking global, worldwide. No, they bang on about the worldwide fan base. I mean, and all right, you can love a football club if you live in Australia, and I know there are a few passionate ones who do come over and
Absolutely, yeah.
I don't argue with that. But there's a lot of bandwagon jumpers out there who say, yes, I am a Liverpool, I am a Red, and they'll go down to the shop and they'll buy a packet of Dunkin' Donuts and they'll buy the shirt and they'll buy the scarf and they'll call themselves Liverpool supporter. They're the type of people that John Henry wants, because they're the type of people who are going to put their hands in their pocket and go, there you go. And if people are buying into that all over the world, because they'll be thinking, all right, I can't get to Anfield, what's the best thing I can do? I can watch it on Sky, pay me monthly subscription, I can go down to the local club shop, I can pay me money over there, I'm a proper Liverpool supporter now. Whereas people from our generation, we look at them sort of go, well, no, I'm sorry, but you're not. You are a customer. That's what you are.
That's it, and that's what, if you remember our last chief exec, Ian, he called the fans. Now,
Customers.
he's a Liverpool fella, a Liverpool fan. So he was indoctrinated with the American philosophy, because what did he call us? Customers.
Customers, yeah.
And that destroyed him. That destroyed him when he said, well, they're only customers. Whoa, that was it.
It's all about marketing now, and they market in a similar way to the way Apple market iPhones. They just want to sell more. They want to grow the amount of revenue they take, and they'll do anything. It's not about growing it from winning awards for winning trophies and stuff. That's some money that comes in, but they'll look at everything. So the football club these days, and some people like it. I've got to say, some people I talk to like this. So I'm not saying it's awful for everyone, but it's the football is only one component in the whole business.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, to me, the football is the business.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if you're not winning things,
No.
why would I bother watching
See,
it?
the thing is as well, Marc hit the nail on the head there. It's like people coming in and saying, oh, I'm buy a shirt, oh, I'm a football fan, I'm a Liverpool football fan. And what you said about global as well, all around the world. The thing is, if you're losing, you're not winning nothing, and there's other teams winning things, they just change into that. So they could lose a massive fan base globally.
Yeah.
And it's the fans, the likes of you and I, who get frustrated with all this simply because what's happening now is Real Madrid are actually looking at Mo Salah. Now, he's our best player at the moment. We just sold the best player at the club
So
to
now it's the
Barcelona.
next best player.
So now the next best player is Mo Salah. And he could be gone in the summer. Because no matter how you look at it, with the owners, they go, okay, yeah, well, there's a profit there. So suppose he went for 110 million. They paid how much? 45 for him? Or whatever it was. Or was it 30
it wasn't
million?
that much.
It's a quick return on someone who's only been here a season or two.
Well, this is it. Double your money and
Yeah.
let's just move on now. And that's the way they are. Unfortunately, you sell your best players, you don't win nothing. You do not win nothing. You stand still. And, even now today, Liverpool Football Club are playing catch up. It's as simple as
I
that.
think that's where you get the clash of cultures coming into it. The Americans would consider finishing top four, and a lot of the global fans would finish top four was a successful season. Whereas
Even some of our old fans here.
Yeah.
I remember when we won the League Cup 2012, when Carlyle had the cheek to actually win something.
Yeah.
But when
I was sacked.
I was sacked for winning something.
it, yeah.
But when we actually got to the final of that, I had a conversation with somebody and they were saying, oh, what would you sooner get, top four or win this League Cup? Because everyone called it a Mickey Mouse trophy.
Yeah.
Now, I've always said I want to win a trophy. I said I would take the League Cup over top four any day. And he said, oh yeah, but that means we're not in the Champions League. I said, well, hang on. What happens when we finish top four? What happens? I'll tell you what happens. We get, I won't say it, but our season ticket money goes up. You put the prices up. You bring out new shirts, new stuff to sell you. Did you want to win it? I don't think they do now. They just want us to be in the top four. So they use that success, as they call it, as a vehicle for them to sell you more of this gumph they have in the shop. And people fall for it, especially the younger generation. I mean, Arsenal fans must have been in heaven, been in the Champions League for 20 years, never winning it.
Yeah.
I mean, that would have done my head in, that.
You got to a final or two, didn't you?
Yeah, I think it has done their heads in, though, hasn't it? I know a few Arsenal fans who aren't at all happy with that.
Yeah. All right, I'll put it to you before we go over to David Johnson. Just very briefly, right? If Liverpool, do you think Liverpool can actually win the Champions League this season?
This season, yeah.
Do you think it?
Yeah.
I'll tell you for why. Is it because the defence with the likes of Van Dijk in there now, he looks very, very solid, and the likes of the emergence of Robertson as well. I think they've got. But the downside, unfortunately, is the goalkeeping situation, and that could be our downfall. And I watched Porto, by the way, it was a full match. It just came on. I went, whoa! So I watched it. Their forwards are absolutely amazing, quick. They can hit a ball, and the skill out of them. In other words, the skill out of them is phenomenal, and it reminds me of our lads, our forwards. So it's going to be a very, very interesting game when we finally play them. Anyway, we'll come back to that actually, boys. we're just going over right now to David Johnson, and David's a professor all the way over there in the state Colorado of, university over there. And Liverpool are getting beat 1-0, by the way.
Thanks, Frank.
Well, I just thought John Kalesi just rang in there. Anyway, it's right over to David. Hello, David.
Hello from the frozen Colorado.
Oh, was it snowing there?
We had a big snow yesterday, and it's really cold today. It's minus 14 Celsius right now. So
really?
Yeah, and that's going to be our high.
Oh, and we're sitting in a warm studio, you know, but when we go outside, it's absolutely freezing.
Yeah, 7 degrees C.
Yeah,
plus 7.
To us, not minus, you know, plus 7 us.
Yeah, well, it's all a different perspective, so.
Exactly. Anyway, David, it's tonight we're going, your afternoon, but tonight here, this evening, we're actually talking about the Native American.
Absolutely. And I was thinking about it as I was kind of reviewing notes today. I mean, it's a daunting prospect, too, because you've got, archaeologically, you've got thousands and thousands of years of history in this country, and then just in the written record, you've got hundreds of years to draw from. So we have a wide range to draw from. Where would you like to start?
Well, the thing is, I was talking to the lads. I used to lecture in Westwood Enterprise. The likes of John Smith, for example, and the Virginia Company. From Sir Walter Raleigh, when he decided to send over a fellow by the name of John Day over to America, and he went over there, and they became the lost tribe, if you like, of these pioneers. They just went missing, unfortunately. Now, can you give us some information, which you do know, but the listeners don't know, David, about Pocahontas and John Rolfe?
Sure, all right. So that's a good place to start. And so what we have to look at is that the Virginia Company and John Smith set up a very adversarial relationship with Powhatan very early. The Virginia Company came into Jamestown and said, we're here, we're going to do more or less what we want, we're going to exploit the resources we want. And Powhatan said, well, you don't have to make war on us. We'll be friendly with you. You just got to kind of respect the boundaries. And that never really worked out for them. There was a degree of mistrust the entire time. And so Pocahontas comes in as a kind of an emissary to smooth things over between Powhatan's people and the later Virginia people that were coming over. And she first of all comes in as an indigenous person, but she does accept Christianity and is baptized with the name Rebecca, and then marries John Rolfe and ultimately winds up going to England, where she promptly dies of, I think, tuberculosis it was. That didn't work out too well. But it was an effort to try and smooth the peace, but there had been mistrust and there had been active hostile fighting and death on both sides leading up to that connection. So it was a rough start from both sides.
Well, the thing is as well, Ed's dad, Powhatan, he was the most, he was the chief of all his tribe, wasn't he? And John Rolfe, who was a tobacco planter, he grew tobacco, and once it's cultivated, the land is no good. So he really needed more land. And he asked Powhatan for the hand of his daughter. Now, that became the very first mixed marriage. Am I right in saying that, by the way?
I do believe so. I am not aware of any other previous records to that effect. Although, and I'm just going to speculate for a minute, you mentioned Roanoke and the Lost Colony.
Yeah.
And that, one of the theories that has been advanced is that the settlers there, once they realized no ships were coming back, they merged with the local tribal groups. But that's not documented, so we're just guessing. Yeah,
that's right, because Virginia is actually made, was named after the Virgin Queen, Elizabeth, who John Day's daughter actually gave birth because she was pregnant going over to America. So that was named after it. The birth was named after them. Anyway, I don't know where I'm going with this. I'm just still thinking about Pocahontas, to be honest.
The whole Elizabeth is a man thing, so I don't know. But
Yeah, well, this is absolutely a man thing. That's why I wanted to get away from it, to be honest, David. And you knew where I was coming from. Well done.
But, after... There's the Jamestown colony, but then there's also a second colony which is probably more talked about in the United States, maybe, and that's the Plymouth Rock colony and the Pilgrims coming over. And you've got two forces at work, and from the colonial point of view, you've got the commercial Jamestown aspect, and then you've got the religious aspect of the Puritans and the Pilgrims trying to create their own religious colonies, and that drives a lot of American history since then. But they did come over also and found all this great pasturage. It was already cleared, it was ready to go, because this previous tribe that had been there died out. Except for Squanto, and of course, that's...
Squanto, yeah. Well, that was in Cape Cod, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm. Much further north.
Yeah. No, they were actually blown off course, the Pilgrim Fathers, because they were on the way to Virginia, and they were blown off course, and they ended up at Cape Cod. And it was the New Jerusalem, wasn't it? Because William Bradford, the leader, it wasn't William Bradford, was it? Was it William Bradford? Yeah, it was.
Without looking, I'm not going to be able to tell you. But
anyway, he turned around. He said, "Look what's here." Now, don't forget, just for the listeners, David, just for the listeners, once they got there, they realised that there was like farmland, but it was already cultivated. It was already seeded, and this is where in 1621 you had Thanksgiving, because the crops and everything else from 1620 was already in place, because they just took over the home. And as you mentioned about that native Squanto, he was already there, wasn't he?
He was, and he had learned English, so that was, that was really helpful. He was a bond servant, probably arguably a slave, and that's how he learned English, so that's not so good. But and I want to set the record straight on the whole Thanksgiving thing, because the myth that's perpetrated in American history to school children and to adults is that the local tribes came and they were sharing in the bounty and they were joyful and everybody was happy together, and it was more a matter of, I guess we'll go because we kind of helped them and we have an obligation. They weren't terribly happy, the natives, about this whole Thanksgiving thing.
Absolutely, yeah.
But, who wins writes the history. I mean, it's cliche, but there's a nugget of truth to that, too. So.
Yeah. Hey, listen, David, as well, we're talking about Pocahontas. When Hollywood decided to do a film, but it was only animated, it wasn't like a proper, film as such, proper actors, it was an animated film about Pocahontas. But she ended up marrying, the way Hollywood put it over, John Smith. He's a big hero of mine, actually, John Smith. Great military hero.
I don't think the Disney film shows them being married, but having a relationship.
Yeah, well, and John Rolfe wasn't even mentioned, though, was he?
No. Well, the other thing to point out is Pocahontas was a very tall 10-year-old in that film.
Well, there you go. Just say no more about that, then. It's unbelievable, though, isn't it? The way Hollywood can define history, if you like.
Redefine, yeah.
Or redefine, yeah.
You mean, are you telling me that the Disney version of Hercules is not Hercules?
Well, there you go. Yes.
I'm crushed.
Don't worry, we all believe in Father Christmas over here.
Well, this is it.
Right.
So that's okay.
And 7-foot mice and, the likes of Mickey Mouse who can talk and things, it's quite amazing.
And the Mel Gibson version of Scottish history.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's totally authentic, I'm sure.
And of a Scottish accent as well.
So listen, David, the way, you know the way the indigenous people, they, you know, you can go back to or forward to the 19th century, and what you have the great movement of, you know, the indigenous people, you know, these different tribes like the Cherokee, the Apache,
right?
Everybody else, and they were on the move because the white man was actually taking their land. And you had one of your great, as they say, generals, and that was Custer, yet he was only a colonel, wasn't he? I think he was demoted. Am I right in saying that?
You are absolutely right. Couple things about General Colonel Custer. One is that he graduated literally at the bottom of his class from West Point. He was the lowest graduate of the class. So it's not exactly a brilliant start there. He was promoted during the American Civil War and then demoted afterwards. And he was also, I don't want to seem harsh, but he was also an idiot.
I wouldn't call that harsh.
Well, you know, okay, so I know you're talking about Custer's Last Stand, and I'm totally drawing a blank. Where was that? I know where that is, but it's not coming to mind. But
Little Bighorn.
That's
Little
it. Was up there. It just wouldn't come out. Yeah. I wanted to go Wounded Knee, and that's not right.
Wounded Knee, yeah. People actually get mixed up. And I'm talking about lecturers who lectured on this, you know, American Studies over here. And I was sitting in, I was waiting to go for lunch with someone, you know, the lecturer of the American Studies. And I'm sitting there waiting, you know. Anyway, he was saying, and yes, you know, the Battle of Wounded Knee, that was the end of Custer. And I was getting his attention. And I had to say it, you know, I had to stand up and I said, excuse me, Mr. Foster. And he went,
You interrupted him.
I had to. You know, and I said, no, it was the Battle of Little Bighorn. He said, I was only testing you, Frank. You know, so.
You know, I would do something like that too, okay? I would just stand up and say, hey, wait a minute. So it's okay. Yeah. But yeah, so what happened? I mean, Custer was out, and he got separated from the main body of troops and came across this just absolutely overwhelming Indian force, and he still said, "Well, let's go get him." And he's at the bottom of the hill and said, "Let's go get him." It was not a smart move. So, I mean, I had a student actually write a paper about this a couple of years ago. The student argued it wasn't so much that the Indians won at Little Bighorn, but that Custer lost, and that the distinction is he was just not thinking straight and set himself up. There was no way to win. And I think it's an interesting idea anyway.
John, David, I'm sorry. Can you give us any information on these reservations that the indigenous people live on to today?
Oh, absolutely. I've been on some. I've been on a few. Yeah. And, because they're all over. The West and the Midwest, there's a lot of different reservations. In the West, it's sometimes just called the res. And so you can't hardly go across certain parts of the country without being on a reservation territory.
Really?
And, yeah.
Have you? Is it right that you have to have permission as well? And they've got their own police force? You know, and say like a police force, if you and I were policemen and we went on to the reservation, we'd have to ask for permission or something like that. Is that right? Are you there? Have we lost him?
He's back.
He's back.
Okay. Yeah, you went silent for a minute there. So yes, they do have their own police force. It's hard to explain exactly, but they're recognized as their own nation. They don't actually have full sovereignty, but
they don't have autonomy as such.
Well, they have. It's kind of like a devolved parliament. I guess that's the best analogy.
Yeah.
Where internal affairs, they do have sovereign authority, but they are bound by national federal law as well.
So it's like it's like one of our regions, I guess. It's like Scotland or Wales in that respect.
Yes, exactly. And so yes, they have their own police force, and you very much better watch your speed. The highways that cut across the reservations, you don't need to stop at a gate and ask permission. But Otherwise, yes, you are there at their sufferance.
Yeah.
And a lot of people go because there's casinos.
Yeah.
But outside of the casinos, it's rough. Honestly, it's an appalling manifestation of hundreds of years of abuse of indigenous cultures, where a lot of people are very marginal existence. Poverty, alcoholism is rife. It's not a very positive sort of outlook.
Yeah, I think Ed's wants to ask you the question.
Yeah, hi David. I was just going to ask you what you just started to talk about the crime rates within Indian reservations. So, if I say Native American reservations, and you started to indicate that the crime is pretty bad, but how is it in comparison with neighbouring non-native areas of America? So is it worse or better or about the same?
Yeah, I think it's not so. I know you're thinking probably of the film that was just out, Windy River, something like that.
Wind River, yeah, absolutely magnificent, yeah.
I don't think that I would. It's not so much that the crime is that bad. It's more a matter. I suppose domestic issues, domestic violence issues, probably can be higher, but it's much like any other impoverished and isolated community. I don't think there's a big difference there.
Do they preserve the culture that we've grown up to believe the Native Americans had, 100, 200 years ago? So have they preserved that culture in any way?
Well, let me say two things about that first. If you were to go up to an Indian and do the Hollywood thing, the Indian would look at you like an idiot, okay? Because nobody does that.
Because they don't do that.
But there is an effort to preserve pieces of it where there are certainly still sacred sites that are recognized as such.
Yeah.
If you go down to, for example, to the Hopi Reservation in Arizona, they still do the Kachina dances there, which is for the success of the corn crop, and they do some that are open to the public. You can come see it, and then they still do some that are private to only members of the Hopi, and that's the more serious events. But if you walk onto a res, you're probably going to see somebody in t-shirt and jeans, not wearing
with an iPhone.
Yeah, well, maybe.
I read somewhere that there's about 500 tribes across the United States. Is that about right?
I think that might actually even be an underestimate.
Really?
Yeah,
and about half of them have got reservations. So lots of reservations, and some of them, I guess, must be huge reservations, like megalithic size reservations.
I don't know if they got megaliths, but
yeah.
But yeah, for example, the Navajo reservation is quite large. The Southern Ute reservation in Colorado is quite large. Some of the ones in Oklahoma as well. So yeah, it's not insubstantial, but there are some that are very small too, that are just little pockets.
Okay, yeah, and one final question from me quickly. We're all got used to cowboys and Indians films. Which tribes really were predominant in those films, and was it a good reflection of the importance of those tribes in America at the time?
That's a hard question to answer. I haven't watched a lot of westerns. I think you're going to see that a lot of people talk about the Apache because it's such a great story.
Yeah.
Well, the Apache are not the Sioux.
No.
But yeah, the Sioux, Dances with Wolves is probably the big one, even though the book was not written about the Sioux. Yeah. But if you think about Geronimo and the kind of the last stand of the Apaches, it's great storytelling, and for a white American audience, it's a great ending because Geronimo surrenders and it put on a res. It's a very different perspective when you're talking to an Indian. And yes, for clarity, we can use the term Native American, but if you encounter an Indian in the United States, you're going to see that they'll address themselves by their nation first. And if they don't know the nation of the other person they're addressing, they'll still use the term Indian.
Okay.
Yeah. It's strange, isn't it, David, that when you look at the indigenous American, you know, they're very, very, very proud people, and it was unfortunate that, you know, what you were saying about you could go into some very rough areas where the likes of alcohol and drugs and everything else is abused, you know, within these reservations. And it just reminds me of Australia as well, where the indigenous people there is more or less the same, because to me it sounds as though, you know, these people are oppressed, and they've been oppressed for you know, hundreds of years, ever since you know, the pioneers went over there and started, you know, well, it was through the railroads, wasn't it? You know, the railroad brought people from the east and the wagon trains to the west, and he just opens up all the territory belonging to the indigenous people. And don't forget that the likes of these lads, they were great hunters. You know, they rode buffalo, and the buffalo roamed free, didn't it? You know, didn't they? It's this sort of scenario where the likes of a traditional culture, it died away, and a new culture, American culture, shall I say, dare I say, you know, grew in place of the indigenous culture.
Yeah. So first of all, I want to say I think the comparison between the Aboriginal people in Australia and the Indians, I think that's a very fair comparison, because there were very similar efforts to, I hate to use the word, but, you know, civilize, I suppose, the population in the same kind of way, schooling and whatnot. You did mix up some timing there. The wagon trains were a bit before the whole railroad thing was going on.
No, that's what I mean. You know, it's just, you know, the two of them. I do know that, actually.
Yeah, but I really think that westward movement, and it was several stages of expansion that just kept continually displacing the native cultures, where, you know, the first move was across the Appalachian Mountains, and that was where that prior to 1830 that was Indian territory, and now they realized the settlers are, wow, it's great farming land, we should go there. And so the Trail of Tears forces this whole culture further west, but you have to understand that they're not going into empty space. There's other cultures and tribes there. And so there's this compression, and every time an eastern tribe moves west, a western tribe has to displace, and so you get this whole crunch on the plains, and then going all the way down into what is modern Mexico. It's really big cultural shifts that have to take place there.
Yeah, of course. I think Ed wants to come in again.
This is a fascinating subject for me, for whatever reason. We often hear in again westerns, and I guess Dances with Wolves, they use this a lot. They talk about human beings, and you know, that's probably lost something in translation. But human being is something that we're told is what the Native Americans would call themselves, and anyone who wasn't a Native American was not a human being. And there's the line, I think, where they say they call the Kevin Costner character a human being, which is like a compliment. Is there any truth or reality in that?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure that I can speak entirely from the native culture outside of some. I can address it from a Lakota point of view, because in Lakota there's a phrase "Metokoe Oesan," and it literally means we are all related. But it's important to understand that they're not just referring to tribe people; they're referring to the natural order, that the buffalo, the rabbit, the coyote, the people, we are all related. But certainly from a white point of view, there is a predisposition among many to not see the Indians as people. Yes, they look like people, but they're not. And that is a common thread throughout all of history. So,
thanks, David.
It just shows you, though, doesn't it? You know, you can talk like this forever and ever and ever. And the unfortunate thing is that no matter how you look, no matter how you look at the vast country of America, you can't get around it really. No matter if it's further from, like, say, California, for example, LA to New York than it is from London to New York, which is absolutely incredible.
It's huge.
So that's why, what about the buffalo? Is the buffalo actually dying out? I was told this years ago, that the buffalo was actually dying out, or they got rid of so many million of them.
That's a real, that's one of the great tragedies of the American West, is that for many of the Plains people, the Cheyenne, the Arapaho, the Kiowa, the buffalo it was the source of life. It was what made everything that they needed. So it was the skins of the buffalo made clothing, as well as the coverings for their lodges. You don't want to call them teepees, okay? It's a lodge. We're just get that right out there. But that the meat, the bones for decorative work, as well as practical things like needles, they did not waste a bit. The tail, the intestines, everything was used. And so you had, oh my gosh, I would love to see this, because you can imagine, the horizons on the plains of America, they're quite vast. You get a sense of scale. It can be unnerving. And now imagine a buffalo, literally horizon to horizon, a buffalo a mile wide. Wow. And that's the scale that we're talking about when white people began to come into the West. By the 1880s, they were an endangered species. Okay, and so that's absolutely a reality, because buffalo robes, just the skin, was big trade for people on the East Coast. And so hunters would come in, they would shoot the buffalo, they would skin the buffalo, and they'd leave the carcass to rot. And that's just decimating to the indigenous cultures. Yeah. There are buffalo still in Yellowstone, but they're probably not pure. They've been crossbred with cows. And it's a very small group. I don't think they're dying out today, but they're very small compared to what they were.
It just shows you, doesn't it? The way some like species on the planet are dying out. Even I'm getting away from the buffalo. I'm getting away from the indigenous people of America. The snow leopard, for example, that's dying out. There's lots of species, actually. The elephant, and I didn't realise that at least 55 elephants per day is being shot dead for the tusks. That's terrible. That's 55 a day. That's incredible. And you take that over 1 month. 55 a day over 1 month.
You can go down to the insect level, can't you? Bees, for instance. Bees, they have been absolutely nearly wiped out.
Well, the thing is, Einstein said, didn't he? If there's no bees, mankind has only got 4 years to survive. That's the bees, so we've got to have these particular... It's like the rainforests, for example, in, say, like the Amazon. Now, I know for a fact that rainforest the size of Germany is being taken away, yet that supplies the oxygen and everything else for the planet Earth.
Well, and not just that, but the biodiversity.
No, of course,
there's thousands of species not even catalogued yet, and we're burning it down. So, I totally with you there.
David, let me just ask a question related to that, but coming back to the Indians again. The Native Americans, they used to roam the plains and they used to hunt buffalo and so on and so forth. Did they have any understanding themselves of the limited amount of buffalo that they could hunt without making them extinct? Was that part of their culture to understand what they take and what they leave?
Yeah, but it's not the way you think, I think. Let me tell you a bit about that if I can. The men were the hunters, and they would go out and hunt the buffalo, either with bow and arrow or certainly later with guns. But the men did not process the buffalo, and the women did that. And so the checkpoint more on buffalo hunting, if you will, was women upbraiding the men. What the heck are you doing killing all these buffalo? And now I've got to skin them and process them, and that's too much work. How dare you? And I'm going to tell you the truth. Don't upset an Indian woman. Let me just be really direct on it.
There's one name that comes to mind again from movies: stands with a fist. If you're, exactly right. I guess for what you're saying. Don't upset someone.
Yeah, well, my encounter was with Edie Bearrobe, and it was much the same. So, so there was a natural cultural check to say, let's take what we need, but not more. But I don't know that we could recognize it as ecology today, but I don't know that. Yeah,
there was a kind of a natural sort of order of things in that respect. It didn't have to think about it. It was just a natural order of things.
Right.
Whereas today, our farming methods of the sea and the plains and so on is a commercial thing. It's actually no longer a natural order, is it?
No, and it's everything for that maximum harvest today without regard to tomorrow.
Yeah.
About numbers, and one of the things that I was just reviewing with students is an account from 1620s New York of trade, and the one shipment they were talking about sending out 7,000 beaver skins, and you have to think, beavers don't reproduce that fast. That how can you possibly sustain that? But nobody was thinking about it at the time. Right. So,
yeah. Do you know when Columbus got there? He got to the West Indies, didn't he, and places like that at the beginning, and lots of tribes actually died, didn't they, because of the flu. And how many died, in America, with the Pilgrims and whoever, with us carrying the European diseases over there.
Yeah, and I would like to point out the thing for Columbus, that Columbus did not have any idea that North America was even there. We talked about him quite a bit, and Columbus stays very big in the United States, but he never got here. He had no idea there was this whole other continent. Not the best navigator, that. But,
leave him alone. He's all right, Columbus. You've got Columbus staying there, why spoil it? No, I'm only joking. Go on.
Anyway, it's really, really hard to put an accurate number on the deaths by disease because there was not an accurate starting count to begin with. Right? Whole tribes were wiped out. In the Plains tribes in particular, they would keep a calendar of sorts by, not so much by month, but by year, and they would write a spiral of symbols on a buffalo hide. And that was like the tribe's record. And you start to see markers in these different calendars of the diseases. So you see a representation of cough, the year that whooping cough came in and decimated a tribe, or the little dots of smallpox.
Yeah.
I can't tell you a number, but I can tell you, and it's a harsh word to use, but I am going to use it. It was genocidal.
Yeah.
Because there were times where American army troops would deliberately distribute blankets from the disease-ridden to the tribes to thin them out and kill them off.
Wow.
So, there's no happy ending to this. No. It's not a happy moment for United States history.
No. And that's a shame, isn't it? But, having said that, it's been a fascinating subject, to be honest. Now, can I ask you something? I know we've got like a few minutes to go.
Yeah.
Is there anything you'd like to talk about next month, David? Another topic, because, we've had the Indigenous now, and is there anything else that you'd like to talk about?
Well, I'm glad you asked, actually. I teach and have students, and I mentioned that I was coming on today, and I had a few students finally ask about possibly coming on with me. And so here's an offer we've talked in the past about history and education and how to get people interested and how to make that connection. Yeah. I wonder if I could bring 3 or 4 students with me and we could revisit that subject in February.
Absolutely. That's fantastic because, no matter what, see, look, here, in this particular country, history is, a wide range of topics. It really is. No matter what, you can pick up any sort of era. I lectured in Roman Britain, and especially the AD 43 Claudian invasion. Now the point is, in America, and this is what we get fed, unfortunately, is that there are students who, are not bothered, American students who are not bothered with history. Is that right?
Alas, yes, it is.
Wow.
All right, I'm going to assume that you, in some course of time, you've heard of who Betsy Ross is, right?
Yeah,
it's a myth,
yeah.
Really real, but she's a real person, didn't actually sew the first flag. I just came from a class where I picture Betsy Ross with the flag. Who is this person? And I got blank stares. So, yes, it is unfortunately true. I had a really fun moment on Friday because I saw the news about the Bayeux Tapestry possibly coming to Britain.
Yeah.
And there was a BBC vid of young school children trying to tell the story of the Bayeux Tapestry, and they did so well. And I thought, why can't we do that? Yeah. So I'm going to bring people that are literate. Okay, I'm going to bring some smart people in.
Yeah.
But it's fair to say there is a tremendous divide between.
Do you think
Britain
see, you could bring them in any time you want, because do you think that they'd be interested in the likes of European history?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, if they're with, they probably will be, because that's what I study a lot. So.
See, the thing is, the Bayeux Tapestry was actually done here by English nuns. Did you know that?
Yes, I did.
Oh, well, that's good, because not many people know that. I've actually seen the Bayeux Tapestry in France myself, when I was over there, and it's amazing. It's just an amazing thing. And
Can I give you a little bit of trivia on the Bayeux Tapestry?
Yeah.
There's a bit which shows Harold with the arrow through his eye.
Yeah, that's
it. Actually isn't an arrow through his eye. What's happened? That little piece of the material of the tapestry has been redone a couple of hundred years ago.
Really?
And they what they did was they sewed the little holes, the micro holes in the material with something that looked like an arrow going into his eye. But actually, I'm told by a good source that it misses his eye because it isn't an arrow going into his eye originally. So there you go. It's worth looking into that. If you're going to talk about the Bayeux Tapestry, it's
I know that it was actually done just a couple of hundred years ago.
And it wasn't the arrow in his eye.
So it's not from the medieval stuff.
Yeah, but most of it is. Most of it is from the medieval stuff.
Yeah, the arrow.
Updated, there's updated bits.
Yeah. Sorry, David.
Do you think that mend in the tapestry, then, is that where the disagreement about the death of Harold comes from? Is that part of that whole thing?
I've not thought about that.
Yeah, because, even the Battle of Hastings, they actually don't know where the battlefields was.
Yeah, I know. I've heard that story, yeah.
Right, they haven't a clue.
Right there, isn't there? So.
Well, yeah, it's like anything else. It's like what I mentioned before when the Pilgrim Fathers were on the way to Virginia and they were blown off course. It's strange. It's a strange concoction, history, the way it is, no matter how you look at it, because it's like Robespierre, for example, during the French Revolution. Now, how many people know that he was actually guillotined himself? And there's not many people about,
never gets talked about.
No, never does get talked about. And that's the sad thing. He's getting all excited here.
I got a question for Frank and for David here. Because if you're going to bring some students in next time, do you both think that those students should say what they'd like to talk about, or will you just give them something?
I'll tell you what, David, that's an excellent question. It really is, because what if you asked them, about European history, for example, and American history, and a concoction of, a mixture of both, a mishmash of both, a little bit of European, say like British, UK history and American history. And it doesn't have to be about wars either. You know, the American War of Independence or anything like that. You know, it could be anything.
Well, it could even be.
It could be like the Black Death or
something not on the curriculum in America.
Yeah, the Great Fire of London. You know, it could be that, which they might find interesting.
This is why I asked you both, because David might say there are things that are not on the curriculum normally, but some of the students,
theories.
Some students are really interested in. You know, from European history, for example. So it was kind of.
I knew conspiracy theories was going to be in there somewhere.
Yeah, obviously.
I'll tell you what. Let's do this. I will see the group of students I'm going to invite on Wednesday. I will pull some ideas from them, and I will send to Jason some thoughts. Okay?
Absolutely brilliant. What a man! What a man!
And then we'll chat again on the 19th of February. All right?
We certainly will, David. It's been absolutely a joy as usual, because lots of listeners, you know, they love the history, by the way, and this is why they tune in. All three of them. I'm only joking.
That's great ratings, right?
But Frank, they're across the globe. You've got an Aussie in there.
Oh, we've got an Aussie there, yeah. We've got an Italian. We've got a Canadian. You know, so anyway. But it goes global, and there's lots and lots of people here, obviously, who are thoroughly enjoying this particular debate or discussion that we're actually having. And that would be fantastic if you did ask your students what they'd like to talk about.
Right. I will do that. And I will talk to you in 4 weeks then.
Yeah, absolutely. And John Calessi's actually said, me too, I'm listening in, David. You know, so that's been so we've got 4 of them now listening in. But anyway, it's been an absolute joy, as I said, and thank you so much again, David, and look forward to next month.
All right, enjoyed it thoroughly. Can't wait for next time. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye now.
Bye, David.
Bye.
Bye. Wasn't that absolutely amazing? Really. It was, you know, because he seems a nice fella as well, doesn't he? He doesn't seem stuffy or anything.
You can ask his students when you speak to them next time.
Yeah.
Is he really a nice fella?
Is he really? Yeah. Is he, you know, is he stuffy, or is he like the way he comes across as a very nice? But you go and sit and listen to his lecture, wouldn't you?
You would, yeah. You would. I'd listen to yours, Frank.
Oh, thanks very much. You know, so at least we got away with it there, didn't we?
We did, yeah. That was
with
good.
American history and that.
Yeah, enjoyed
but
that.
it's. I tell you what, we're going to do now. We're actually. Hang on, what's a... the call came from a set piece.
Fancy that.
What
a surprise.
Yeah, you know, a set piece, and that's Liverpool are losing 1-0 to all our listeners. Anyway, what we're going to do, we're going to go half time before we go to Derek Shelmerdine, and what we're going to play 2 songs by the Drifters. One is Under the Boardwalk and Save the Last Dance for Me. Absolutely amazing. And this is my mate who's actually singing here, you know. Benny King.
Yeah.
Did I tell
he
you
speaks very highly of you, Frank.
Yeah, did I ever tell you about what I was talking to him when I was calling him Benny? And he went out, he said, he said, will you excuse me a moment, gents? And he walked away. Might have gone to loo or something for all I know. And Percy Sledge said, hey man, it's Ben E. It's not Benny. Anyway, when he came, I went, oh right, okay. So when he came back, I said, listen there, Ben E. I said, I'm sorry for calling you Benny. And he went, man, he said, presidents of the United States have called me Benny. You know, it's no no problem.
You're in good company, Frank.
Yeah, no problem.
It's hard to say, though, isn't it, really, when you're talking to someone, Benny, without saying Benny.
Ben E, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, and
It doesn't come
that's
natural,
that's what Percy Sledge. I was going to say Percy was calling him.
Your
I'm
mate
Billy.
Percy.
I'm Billy Paul. That's what they were calling him. Ben. I was calling him Benny.
The 3 of them have gone now, haven't they? Billy Paul.
Yeah, they've all gone. Yeah.
They've all gone.
Yeah. Don't be looking at me like that. You know, they've all gone.
Well, I was actually seeing if there was a connection, you know.
Yeah, a little connection. Do I look a bit pale here? Anyway, we're going over and Anyway, we're going over to these. I keep getting texts here. I wish you'd be getting them because I'm losing all thread. Anyway, we're going over to these two wonderful songs, and we'll see you after the break, along with Derek Shelmerdine, who'll be telling everyone, and me and you and everybody else, about the Drifters and the wonderful songs that they had written and sang and became number one.
The best in 60s and 70s music, plus a little bit of history. Tune into Frank Carlyle every Monday at 8 p.m. here, only on Mersey Radio.
Save the last dance for me. How about that?
I was just saying during the break there that you know, a couple of those songs there, it's like really evocative for people like me and I guess like yourself and Marc here.
Yeah.
You know, you hear those songs. They were songs that you would hear when you were maybe going to school and walking down the road to school in the rain, and you listen to these songs, you know, you're singing them to yourself because you didn't have, like, there were no things to stick in your ears in them days. And you'd be singing them to yourself walking down the road, stepping over the cracks. And, you know, brilliant songs.
Do you know what? You just said something there, and it was a tradition, like going back. And you don't hear it now. And you said, you know, someone singing it or whatever, even to yourself, they always seem to whistle the tunes, and you never ever hear that now. Anyone whistling to you, and that was
you
like
never
a
hear
tradition.
whistling. No,
that was a tradition. So you know, yeah, you're right there. To be honest, that's about these wonderful things, songs sung by, you know. Let's be honest, they were icons. That's what they were. And, you know, Derek will be filling us in a little bit more about the Drifters and everything else. You know what I mean? So, well, what did you think, lads, of, you know, when we said that Liverpool were getting beat then, they weren't getting beat. And it was disallowed. Now they're getting beat. And it's just nuts, isn't it? So, this is before we go over to Derek. So, do you think if they lose today, even if they draw, you know, it's a big step back from what results were going the other day?
I think it'll just show we're still a work in progress, really.
Well, this is it. How long is Liverpool going to be a work in progress?
Apparently, I haven't seen it, but apparently it come from a set piece.
Yeah.
Now, we've just signed Van Dijk to sort that one out, so obviously
something's gone wrong.
He hasn't quite got to grips with it yet.
the game plan's not working very well.
The game plan.
I think to be fair though, I mean, it's a second game. It's going to take time for that back four to sort out, and we've still got the goalkeeping problem.
Which ain't going to be sorted, so I'm told.
Well, I'm a bit curious because Klopp's actually told him that he's number one, and all I can think of is maybe Klopp thinks if he knows he's number one, that might give him a bit of incentive to make sure he keeps it.
Actually, it's an interesting point that, because when I heard him say that, I thought Mignolet's going to be really cheesed with that. Maybe he knows Mignolet's on his way out.
Yeah, I think
in which case there's another one coming in. Maybe that's the way Klopp believes it's the only way to get another goalkeeper in under the noses of these owners.
I think
is for Mignolet to leave and replace him with a first-class keeper.
I think Klopp actually likes Carray's though, and Klopp does like turning.
I think he does. Well, he brought him in, didn't he?
Players into good players,
yeah.
And I think this is his sort of last go at trying to get him to put his finger out, as it were.
Yeah, you know, it reminds me too much of, you know, like David James, you know, great at stopping shots but couldn't hold a cross, you know. That was him, wasn't it? That was David James, wasn't it?
To be fair, I mean, go back through our history, and even Bruce Grobbler was known for dropping some horrendous clangers. Even Clemens, when he played for England.
Even Clemens, but not so many.
True, not so many, true, but it's as they say, isn't it? If a goalkeeper makes one mistake, everybody remembers it for the rest of his life.
But I think it's also true that the defence includes the goalkeeper, and if it's not working as a unit, then it doesn't matter. One weak link in the unit, and you're going to let goals in. And you could blame the keeper for every single goal when really it's a bad unit that's to blame. So we could be blaming Karius or we could be blaming Mignolet when sometimes it's just that the unit wasn't working. They don't communicate well. And that's, again, what we're hoping Van Dijk will help fix, because a bit of maturity right in front of the goal managing all that stuff in front of him. And the goalkeeper has to understand that the 6-yard box is theirs, not the way it's been played. They just haven't got that, have they? They've never shown that.
Monty Connors tunes in all the way from Atlanta over there.
Hello,
in
Monty.
Georgia. And he's with Pussyfoot, which is a band, a great band.
Oh, yeah.
They're brilliant,
Yeah.
They're brilliant. And, obviously they're going to come over to the UK at some time.
Mm-hmm.
He's been dying to get over. And, so I need to see what messages are being coming through. I'll have to let the listeners know. Is that Sir Ken Dodd has died. Now, we don't know whether this is a hoax or what, because there's nothing on any news agencies or anything else. And this is what we're trying to get. And even Monty Connor has said, is this right, that Sir Ken Dodd has died?
It's spreading around, isn't it? It sounds like it's another one of these hoaxes, doesn't it?
Yeah, which is, to
would
have
have been on
hoax.
the news-wise, wouldn't it, by now?
Yeah, it would have well been it would have been breaking news.
Well, I'll
to
tell
be
you
honest.
what, the BBC haven't got it anywhere.
Well, there you go.
And they're normally a bit slower than others to come up with the news because they're a bit more careful when they tell people.
Yeah.
But it's what, 10 minutes, 15 minutes since it first started to leak?
30 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they've said nothing.
Well, let's hope that it isn't, because he was coming home, wasn't he, as well? He only went in with a chest infection. And he was coming home anyway. So listen, lads, have Liverpool got to win this game?
I think Southampton done them a favour yesterday by drawing with Spurs.
Yeah.
I thought Spurs would win that.
Yeah, so
and
did I.
maybe go a bit above us, which would have put pressure on us. So
Yeah.
if we get beat, we're still above them, still top 4. So it's obviously not the end of the
But
world.
it doesn't matter because
Yeah,
we're going to
but
win.
I don't know. I mean, I haven't seen the game, so I don't know whether we're playing well, bad, or...
Well, according to the
not the end of
stats,
the world.
according to the stats, Liverpool have had most of the game.
Well, but that's like most games, though, isn't it? I mean,
But
there's only so many times you can pass the ball across the pitch.
Yeah.
Before.
Yeah.
It was the reverse against City. City had most of the game, yet we won the game.
Right, anyway, we've got Derek on now, haven't we? He's just come through. We going to... I wonder, just a moment before we go over to Derek, I've had a message off Andy Gamble, and he said, Frank, news regarding Doddy. It's Frank or just announce it. I can't understand that particular message. Can you?
If fake, it says, Frank, news regarding Doddy. I think he means is fake. I think
It says
that's a
fake.
typo, yeah.
Well, thank God for that.
I mean, with
because-
it being his 90th birthday today, I think, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's easy for some hoaxer to just say, and he died. on
Isn't
his
that
90th
horrible?
birthday. I think
Isn't
it is
it?
horrible. But we're kind of getting used to this nonsense. And
It's
that's
all
a
the
bad thing
rage
too,
these
isn't it?
days, isn't it? Fake news.
Fake news, yeah.
It's all over.
If he gets 50,000 shares of that, then all of a sudden he's probably got it monetized,
Yeah.
and they're making money out of lying.
Yeah.
That again, that goes back almost to the conversation earlier about FSG and football. It's just making money.
I cannot understand.
Yeah.
I really cannot understand these fellas or girls, whoever they are, who decide to make a little rumour spreading.
Well, I can understand it if it's about money. They don't care about the truth.
No.
And Marc Kinnish actually said, no, he's not.
No,
He's not. And there's
So
no
I-
news coming up, and it would have been breaking news anyway.
it would have been.
So, okay, well, let's get over to, because you'll have a load of questions to ask all you little dancers. Have you seen the pic, before we go over to Derek, have you seen the pictures of Mr. Gilchrist there, that his lovely wife, Angela, put up?
No, not me wife. That's me sister.
Is that your sister?
That's me sister. Yeah,
You joke?
yeah, that's me sister.
Go
My
on.
lovely wife's nicer than me sister.
Oh, go on. Well,
So I can say that safely because I think she's gone back to Spain.
she go back to Spain.
Thought you'd been a bit brave there, Ed.
Yeah.
Do you know, he reminds me of one of the Bee Gees. You
Yeah, in
reminds
the
me-
original photo.
Yeah, you reminded me of
I
one
don't
of
know
the
whether
Bee Gees.
Mark's seen it. You must
not
have seen it
seen
because
it,
it's
no.
on my profile. Yeah.
Brilliant photographs. Yeah. Even Laura was surprised. They must have been hidden from her.
Laura was a bit surprised there, yeah.
Look at them, they look great there, you know. Yeah. So brilliant. Shades on.
It was Laura's idea to do.
Yeah, he had loads of it.
Oh God. It's a pity this isn't television. I could show all the viewers.
Hang on, are we going back to fake news now?
Do you know what we're going?
Real hair?
Do you know what we're going to do, Marc? You know, with the boys, we're going to do a periscope, aren't we, Jason? One time. We are. We're going to,
sounds like we are.
And this is when, you know, a camera goes around you. Anyway, we've got the wonderful.
Just let me know. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Sister. It's just John Colosi says exactly. Yeah, he said John Colosi. Yeah, just simply searched at the BG.
Doddy, yeah.
No, just searched. You know, you are like a BG. Anyway,
well, that's now.
Anyway, all right,
now.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh, here we go. But listen, we've got to go over to our guest.
We have, yeah.
And he's going on about photographs. Sorry, I mentioned that. I know it's it. Not going on anymore. Anyway, I think he's gone. Derek's gone.
He's gone, yeah.
He's got fed up. He wants to see the photograph now. Anyway, good evening there, Derek, and I'm sorry about that.
That's all right. Hello, Frank. Hi, guys.
Good evening, Derek.
So anyway, the Drifters, what have you got to tell us about them? Now, I think before you start, Ed would like to say something.
Oh yeah, I was looking at. There's a bit of a brief here that says, you know, the 3 eras of the Drifters. I think this is what Frank's referring to, and I had this impression there were like 39 or 40 different incarnations of the lineup. Is that about right?
Oh, there are almost infinite incarnations. There were 60-odd singers, probably about 10 lead singers. But what also happened was that from the time that the whole band was sacked, a second drifter set itself up.
Yeah.
One of the guys that was in the original band, Bill Pinky, when the manager sacked the lot of them, he set up his own original drifters with 3 guys who'd been in the first drifters. And after that, in the 60s, 70s and 80s afterwards, there were a number of simultaneously touring bands calling themselves the Drifters. One of the greatest ones I like was in 2017, you could see Clyde McPhatter's Drifters. Now, he died in 1972, but the lead singer was wrong.
Hi, Derek. It's Marc here. Just a point. The actual name, is that actually owned by one person or a company, or because it seems strange that the Drifters is being owned 1953, was it? And you know what I mean? So it's not the Drifters, is it? Because as you said, there's been 60 odd of them. So does someone actually own that name?
Absolutely. I mean, that was the cause of all the problems in the first place. Originally, the name was owned by Clyde McPhatter, who was the guy that was signed up in 1953 by Ahmet Ertegun, the head of Atlantic, to sign them up. And he jointly owned the name with the manager, whose name slips my mind at the moment. And what happened was that when Clyde McPhatter was called up to go into the army, he sold his share in the group back to the manager, and that was when all the trouble started, really. Because what happened was that when Clyde McPhatter went in the army, basically Johnny Moore became the lead singer. Then he was drafted, so now we're up to about 1958, and a guy called Bobby Hendricks was the lead singer for a little bit. But George Treadwell, that's the manager's name that was on the tip of the tongue, on the 30th of May 1958, he sacked the whole band in one night, and that's how Benny King came into the fray. They were playing a week's residency in Harlem, And on the bill was a band called the Crowns with Earl Nelson, which is what his name was before he changed it to Benny King.
And at the end isn't that unbelievable?
You should have called him Bill when you met him then, shouldn't you, Frank?
Yeah, I should have done. That's incredible. I didn't even know that. I don't, you just expect him to be like Benjamin, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Let's be honest. And Ben.
Yeah.
Ben
Go on then, what were you saying?
I'm sorry, Derek.
It's good,
I'm just fascinated.
He took his name, actually, from his favourite uncle. You could have you ask him about him next. Oh, there won't be a next time, of course.
No,
but Benny King was the name of his favourite uncle. And what happened
was it Ben E? Sorry, Derek. Was it Ben E or Benny, his uncle?
No, it is Ben, capital E, King.
Right.
I'm not sure the E actually stands for anything.
Yeah,
I've never seen it stand for anything.
Yeah, like Dwight S, whatever it was. What was his name? R.E.S. Truman. S stood for nothing, did it?
Exactly.
Yeah. Google email.
Google email. Google email. So go on, Derek, this is fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, because the Benny King era is really interesting. What happened then? They sacked the existing drifters.
Listen, before you go on, was Benny King, like a sort of like how can I say an individual singer or unheard of or what? How did he get drifted in? Excuse the pun. Drifted into the drifters.
What it was, he was the lead singer with a group called the Five Crowns. They shortened their name to the Crowns, and the Crowns were playing at this week-long residency. I think Ray Charles was there as well. But the Crowns were playing at this residency, and at the end of the week, the manager, George Treadwell, because the Drifters hadn't really had a hit for a year, the Bobby Hendricks guy had already left the band, so they were really without a proper lead singer. So he just sacked a lot of them and instated the Crowns as his band. And because that's why the question at the beginning was great, because that's the reason he could do it. George Treadwell owned the Drifters' name, so when he sacked the first band, he just renamed the Crowns to the Drifters. But it sort of gets better than that, because what happened then, that's the middle of 58, they had a whole load of gigs to fulfill. And for the best part of a year, they were on the road. They didn't go into the studio until May 59.
Derek?
What happened was then, they went in, that's when they recorded There Goes My Baby.
Derek, I'm just looking at, I kind of did a bit of research myself before I came on the show, and I'm just looking at this, and it looks like, Benny King is the man that everyone thinks it was the voice of the Drifters, don't they?
No, yeah, absolutely, he's not.
Because I was going to say he was only there for 2 years.
He was only actually, the first year they didn't record. He actually only recorded a handful of songs with them, and when that second song you played came out, which was the Benny King song, To Save the Last Dance for Me, he'd already left the band.
Go on.
You can see, if you look at the label on the American release of the single, it credits it as vocal quartet and Benny King.
Wow.
You can see, it's weird. When the group started with Clyde McPhatter, the credits then were Clyde McPhatter and the Drifters. So in a lot of ways, the Drifters were a backing group to the main singer. But the Benny King one's great, because what happened when they went into the recording studio, the Crowns had been managed by a guy called Lover Patterson, which I think is a great name. And he was the manager of the Crowns, but the Crowns didn't have a contract for the bunch of them. They all had individual contracts. And when Lover Patterson sold the band, basically, the contracts of the Crowns to Treadwell, he didn't sell him Benny King's contract. And what happened then is Lover Patterson and George Treadwell fell out. So after the first round of touring up until mid 59, Benny King didn't go out on the tours after that. He was only in the recording band. And Charlie Williams used to do most of the lead singing when they were on the tours. But you're right. I mean, sorry.
Go on, Derek.
I was just going to say, if you wanted to look for a voice of the Drifters, you'd have to go for Johnny Moore.
Yeah, he was there for about 6 or 7 years, wasn't he?
Well,
Yeah,
do you know you're more than a number in my little red book? That's must be the longest title in the world. Who's that sung by? Was that Johnny Moore?
That was Johnny Moore, yeah. Well, what happened was that the three eras, they were very much an R&B group with Clyde McPhatter in the 50s, and then with Benny King, Charlie Thomas, Rudy Lewis, Johnny Moore, they became a soul band. They were part of the Atlantic Soul roster. In fact, the guy that formed Atlantic record label in 1947, Ahmet Ertegun, he's quoted as calling them the all-time greatest Atlantic group. But by the end of the 60s, the hits had run out on both sides of the Atlantic by about 67 or 68. And what happened is, like with a number of American acts, like Eddie Cochran, they had a lot more success in the UK.
Yeah.
So who was it then who sang "Sitting in the Back Row"? Was that Johnny Moore as well?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, because that was late 60s, was it?
Yeah,
Mid to late 60s. Yeah. So actually, when I'm thinking of the Drifters, I shouldn't be thinking Benny King. I should be thinking of Johnny Moore, shouldn't I? Really?
Yeah.
Well,
but it's the same as everything else. You know, we associate Benny King with the Drifters, and he's the number one. If you asked the ordinary bloke or girl around the country, for example, you know, like music, and you said, name one singer out the Drifters, they'll all say Benny King. They will not say Johnny Moore.
They won't even know who Johnny Moore is.
Exactly.
No.
Exactly.
And yes, he had.
And Rudy Lewis is another one.
Yeah.
Rudy
who
Lewis.
recorded an awful lot of the big hits.
Yeah. It's strange that though, isn't it? You know, because you must have a mind of information, you know, about these particular people. I'm not just saying the likes of Johnny Moore or Rudy Lewis. There must be other people as well that have been in bands, you know, groups that is, and we wouldn't have a clue. Say like the Supremes, for example. The Supremes, you just Diana Ross.
That's right.
And that's it, you know. All right, Mary Moore was in was it Mary Moore?
Wilson?
Mary Wilson, you know, she was in the band, but who else would know that, you know, who'd know Mary Wilson? And it's just
but
Diana
she played down Matthew Street not long ago, didn't she?
Yes, she did.
She was in the back room at the Cavern, I think, just a few months ago.
Yeah.
Oh, a surprising number of people from this era are still on the road.
Yeah.
And a lot of the original bands, I mean, the Searchers are still on the road. A couple of the original
ish guys, isn't it?
Yeah, well, it's McNally, isn't it? And Mike Pender. Well, Mike Pender's been on the show, hasn't he?
Yeah.
And you know, they have the Mike Pender searches and the McNally searches and
that's right.
Well, Manfred Mann is another one, isn't it? You've got Earth Band and Manfred Mann, and you know, the band that called themselves Manfred Mann when they split didn't include Manfred Mann.
Yeah, because Manfred Mann was the organist, wasn't he? And Paul Jones was the singer.
But they replaced Paul Jones with the other fella. What's his name, Derek? The other singer.
Oh, he's the guy that
Mike Darbo. Yeah.
Mike Darbo. In fact, they're back together now, calling themselves the Manfreds.
Yeah, that's it, the Manfreds, yeah.
But Mike Darbo or Paul?
Is that? I think that's Mike Darbo, isn't it, the Manfreds?
It's both of them, actually.
Really?
Yeah, Paul Jones is back with them as well. He sort of comes to shows.
Yeah.
But I know recently they were both on a tour. I saw an advert for them, and both lead singers were.
Well, that'd be good because Mike is one of the best harmonica players there is. In terms of blues harmonica, he's absolutely brilliant. Yeah. So it's a mess, isn't it? Really, all this.
Well, it's not. I was Marc was talking before when he just talked like that.
Sorry, but he get him
and he was talking about Queen. He said, and once Freddie Mercury died, that was it. It was the end of Queen. because you can't replace. I was only talking about the Drifters, weren't we, Mark?
Yeah. I think a lot to do with is regard the force of personality of the lead singer.
Yeah.
Freddie Mercury was such a big person, you just couldn't replace him.
No.
Where you go for Drifters, for instance.
you can
you can say because they're such a harmonious group.
Yeah.
They've still got that sound, so you can still change one or two members. But I didn't think there was 60.
Well, it's like the Beatles, isn't it? It's like the Beatles. You take one of the Beatles out. You're
saying if you took all four out, could you still call them the Beatles? Would people still call them the Beatles?
No. Well, that's why McCartney.
No, they would if they replace one at a time. It's like it's three with a different one, then two with a different two, then three with and it just becomes four different guys 20 years later who call themselves the Beatles still.
Yeah, but the thing is, if you like, when the Beatles broke up, why didn't one of them stay and just say, well, shall we stay, or we'll just replace Lennon?
Well, I think a few of them done a little bit of a duets together, and I think they probably toyed with the idea.
There was, I think,
back together a little bit, but I don't think someone had to do that.
I could be wrong, Mark, but I suspect that there was some commercial involvement in that decision not to reform at that time or to play under some other name. I think the fights they were having with Apple Corps were enormous, weren't they?
Yeah.
And so they probably were so preoccupied with that the notion of carrying on with some of them as Beatles just wouldn't have.
What's your take on that, Derek?
I tend to agree with the thought that there was so much animosity in the 70s. I mean, Lennon and McCartney did jam together in 74, and that's on a bootleg called A Snoot and a Snort, A Toot and a Snort in 74, and that was the last time they played together. I think John Lennon was in New York recording Pussycats with Nielsen, and Paul McCartney just happened to be there, and they got together and they played together for the last time. I think Stevie Wonder's on that, in that jam as well, and on that bootleg. But I mean, there was a lot of animosity. I mean, they didn't actually. I think the formal winding up of the band was about 74, and of course John Lennon dropped out. I mean, when he was murdered, he'd only released his last album 2 or 3 weeks earlier, and I think it was about his first album for 4 years.
Yeah.
So I think there was a lot going on, really.
Well, listen, Derek, about your book and your website, can you give us more information on it, please, before we finish?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, a lot of the information here is taken out of the book called Rock and Roll Unraveled. Tells the story of rock and roll from its roots to mid-70s punk. And very active, and you get a lot of information from that and a lot of stuff about rock and roll on the website on www.rockandroll.com, and very active on Twitter and Facebook as well. Twitter on RNR Unraveled, and Facebook at Rock and Roll Unraveled.
Wow. And you get all this on your, all everything, all the information and everything else about how to acquire it on your website, yeah?
Absolutely. Well, it's actually stocked in White Blend in Waterloo.
Okay. It's funny, Mark David Kinnish, he said about, he said the point during the White Album, obviously the Beatles, he said a lot of the time there was only sometimes 2 of them in the studio.
Oh, absolutely.
It's weird.
By the time he got to, I mean that was when the rock really set in.
Yeah.
There are different accounts of Yoko's influence in all that, but a lot of accounts reckon. I mean, Yoko spent an awful lot of time in the recording studio offering advice, which wasn't always gratefully accepted, I don't think.
Yeah,
but by the time you get
a bit like Spinal Tap, isn't it, Derek? With the band bringing the girlfriends in, taking over the show.
Yeah, but the thing is, I know some people like that. They try to tell you, and they haven't a clue. They've never been, say like the radio, for example. Some particular person said to me, "This is the way you should into it." And I went, "What are you telling me? Well, you tell them it. Never been inside a studio in their lives. Never been on the radio. This is how you should interview. Haven't a clue. They just like to, put the pennant in. And it's like Yoko, unfortunately, kind of put the pennant in.
But she could sing, couldn't she? You know, we all knew.
She's
What a brilliant voice, you know?
Wonderful, absolutely. Listen, Derek, what would you like to talk about next month? It's entirely up to you.
Okay. I'll give it some thought and drop you a couple of ideas.
Yeah, get hold of Jason.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Because you've got so much energy there and so much to talk about. It's fun. You mentioned Eddie Cochran there before.
Yeah.
You surprised me there about he never had a number one hit in the States. Yeah, he was a bigger hit.
He was a lot bigger here, particularly after he died.
Yeah.
It's surprising when you look at a lot of these artists. A lot weren't that successful in America, and a lot have become more successful in retrospect. I mean, Eddie Cochran is right up there now with the classic rock and rollers, but at the time he wasn't that big. Well, I wouldn't go so far as he wasn't that big, but his stature has grown, I think, historically, quite justifiably as well. He wrote a lot of his own stuff as well, you know.
Did he? Yeah. Did he write? The three steps.
3 steps to heaven.
Well, three.
Yeah, I can't remember if he wrote that particular one. His girlfriend Sharon Shealy wrote quite a lot. And
Summertime Blues.
Yeah,
that's right. And you've got to be a bit careful because his brother writes as well. So there are credits that say Cochran Shealy, and it's actually his brother, not him.
I know that Frank's trying to just end this little bit of the session at the moment, but I just had to ask you this because I just scribbled a note here for myself. You know, you're saying what to do next time. Would you consider something? A thing that interests me a lot is the subject of fame after they died. You kind of just alluded to it a minute ago. You know, Eddie Cochran was more popular after he died with some of those songs in the UK, particularly. There must be oodles of really famous people who really only made it after they died. And, there's like painters, obviously, but that we know of, but like Van Gogh, but the singers and the musicians who were famous after they died, like Eddie Cochran was more famous after he'd gone.
Even
and
Elvis.
So on. To some degree.
Absolutely.
But it would be good to, if you, I'd like it if you were able to consider that for one of the shows that we could listen to.
Great.
Just go through a list of that. That'd be great.
I've just got visions now of all these agents pushing death onto their arses. This is going to be a good career move for you, trust me.
Yeah. When you say, when you're on stage last night, you really died there.
Literally. I wonder if Elvis is really still alive. Yeah. You know what Marc said? This will be a good move for you.
He does work at the Chippy.
Exactly. He's down there in Bolton. Anyway. Oh, it's been absolutely wonderful again, Derek. Absolutely fascinating. So, there's a suggestion by Mr. Cambridge man there, Ed, to do, after they died.
Yeah, that sounds like a great idea.
Absolutely brilliant. Thank you so much.
I'm sure there'll be a lot of interesting stuff.
Yeah, because, even recently, when someone has died, and we've had a lot of deaths, unfortunately, in the last 12 months or so, they've just shot back up to number one, haven't they? And
I'll tell you just very quickly what you're getting people dying who no one ever heard of because they weren't the front man.
Exactly.
So members of bands who were in the back.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Derek, we have to leave it. I'm sorry, we've got to go over to Hollywood, of all places. Okay, I'll see you next month.
Absolutely. Cheers.
Thank you, Derek. Thank you.
See you, Derek.
Anyway, that was Derek Shelmerdine. That was wonderful, wasn't it, boys? And we're going straight over to... No, we're not. We're going over to Hollywood anyway. And the wonderful Joe. Yeah, we're going to play a song. No, I tell you what, we won't play a song. We'll just wait until you get Joe on.
Okay.
And we'll talk a little bit about... we're not talking about after they died anyway.
Nah.
So... I'll tell you what we'll talk about. We'll talk about football, eh?
Just for a change.
Just for a change, yeah.
Because it's still 1-0 as far as I can tell.
Yeah, there's still 1-0. I think they'll end up getting beaten. That'll be the end of it.
71% of the possession.
71. Well, that, you know, it's no use having possession of that amount and not scoring, unfortunately, because they will die defending, and that's what Liverpool can't do.
I think if you watch Liverpool over the last few years, no one's be surprised.
I know.
Every single game, it could be a win, a draw, or a defeat, and whatever one it is, you're not surprised.
No, and that's the shocking.
4-3 against City last week, then you lose against Swansea this week.
Yeah, well, it's shocking statistics, no matter how you look at it. Anyway, what we're going to do, we're going to go right over to Hollywood, and Joe Whitaker. Good evening and good afternoon to you, Joe.
Good evening and good afternoon, and hello from Hollywood.
Brilliant. What's the weather like there, Joe?
Sunny, sunny, sunny.
Oh, well, there you go. I've seen you standing by a massive, beautiful, yellow convertible. Am I right?
Yes, it's a Spider.
It's a Spider. Well, is that your boyfriend's motor or yours?
No, it's a car I can use from time to time because I have some nice friends.
Oh, right. Oh, okay, then. Well, that's unbelievable, isn't it? I can't even... I don't know. They want to lend me a car. Mine's a Spider and a big yellow one.
I don't know. My lawyer is nice to me, and, you know, he's looking after my case.
Oh,
so
brilliant.
he said to me, go and treat yourself, you can use my car. And I went, okay.
Oh, so it was this. That's wonderful. No wonder. Lawyer over there in Hollywood. Oh, dear. Anyway, Joe, what about these Oscars?
Yeah, coming up soon.
Yeah, well, you know, there's what's his name? His name's gone from me, and he's just won the Golden Globe Award. Gary Oldman.
Yes, I'm rooting for him. I want him to get the Oscar. He's very deserving. I saw the movie last week.
Well, what do you think of his chances then?
I think he's going to steal it. I really do believe he's the one for the job.
I think he's brilliant myself. I think he's a great actor.
He's not really. You know, he's been quite an underdog for many years in a way.
Yeah.
But this role as Winston Churchill, I mean, he got it just right. His mannerisms. Yeah. He got his speech impairment nearly perfect.
Yeah.
But, he's very deserving of it, without a doubt.
Do you know what he reminds me of? There's two actors there, two Brits over there in Hollywood, and I think that the great, Gary Oldman himself, because I thought he was absolutely brilliant where he was over the top when he played in Francis Ford Coppola's Dracula. I thought he was absolutely superb in that, because he just played him over the top. And the other is Tim Roth. I think Tim Roth is a great actor also.
Yeah.
Oh, was that the end of that then? I thought she was going to come in there and say loads on there, Tim or Gary. So, who's the favourite for the Oscars? And tell us a little bit more about them, please.
Yeah, we've got Gary Oldman for The Darkest Hour, as we discussed. Hugh Jackman for The Great Showman. Then we've got Daniel Day-Lewis is up for Best Actor in the P.T. Anderson film. Another
Oscar for him.
After all these years.
No, because he's won 3, hasn't he? He's the only fella to win 3 Oscars.
Really?
Yeah, Daniel Day-Lewis.
Yeah. And we've got Timothy Chalamet for the Call Me By Your Name and Chadwick Boseman for Marshall. They're the boys.
Yeah.
But we've got beautiful Judi Dench for one.
Oh, Judy.
Yeah, for Victoria and Abdul.
Ah, yeah.
Meryl Streep's up for The Post.
Yeah.
The story about the Washington Post.
Yeah.
Yeah, so...
have you seen that particular film?
No, I didn't see it. It didn't something I wanted to watch, but I've had good reviews from friends who went to see the premiere, and they said good things about it.
Because Tom Hanks, Meryl Streep, and Steven Spielberg, you can't go wrong with that, and based on a true story as well.
Yeah.
Both
I think
Vietnam,
Mel might.
wasn't it?
I think she might take it for the post.
Really?
Yeah.
I think Meryl Streep is the finest actress, besides Dame Judy and Maggie Smith.
I would agree with you.
Good actress. Can't stand the individual myself.
Why?
Meryl.
Yeah.
Think she's a hypocrite, but that's another story for another day.
Oh, come on! It's Meryl you're talking about. It's actually messy.
I don't want to take Joe's thunder here because we're talking about the Oscars.
Yeah.
Joe, can I ask you a question about outsiders? Are there any outsiders that might sort of be getting a look in?
Well, there's always a few outsiders, but I think it's quite determined this year who's going to grab hold of the main Oscars. Dunkirk.
Yeah.
Someone said The Shape of Water.
Perhaps.
Just as a real outsider. Yeah. Don't know. It's a weird one, isn't it?
Yeah.
Can I just ask that I'm not totally clued up on how the Oscars work. Is it the actors and actresses themselves who vote?
No, they've got a panel.
No, is just a certain number of people.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
How is it worked on? I mean,
so they get sent all the people up for nominations, and basically this panel sit there and they go through the movies, and the movies are sent to their homes, their offices, and they get to decide who they think's going to win.
Is this a large panel?
No, I think it's a paid panel. Generally tied into the movie industry. But they make the decisions every year. I think it should be more down to you and I voting on such things, but no.
Yeah, they vote for themselves, don't they, basically?
Yeah.
It seems a system open to abuse, doesn't it, really? I mean, if you look at some of the stuff going on in Hollywood now, in the past and maybe even now, you've got to sort of say, well, hang on, is the Oscars, is it really the Oscars?
Well, that's a good question I had for Joe in a way, because, does she think that the Oscar ceremony this year will ride the storm that they've had the last 12 months? The scandalous storm they've been suffering, but will the Oscars just come through?
It's going to be very interesting, the commentary, isn't it, really?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All these stories have been coming out with sexual abuse and all the rest of it. I think something's going to happen.
Do you think they'll do what they did? Was it the Globes where they all stand up in black and they all pontificate about stuff instead of getting on with the show? Are they going to do that again, or are they going to actually just get on with movies, which is what everyone wants to watch?
I think there'll be some demonstration. They can't help themselves, can they?
They can't really. They're all actors, aren't they? At the end of the day,
they certainly are.
Which would be a pity. Yeah.
You see, the thing is, over on this side of the pond, people look forward to these wonderful shows that the Oscars present, and there must be somebody. Do you think it's genuine? When the camera goes on, when they're nominated and they're on the stage and they say Meryl Streep for, and it goes on to Meryl Streep, and Dame Judi Dench, and it goes on to Dame Judi Dench and whoever else is sitting there. Do you think they already know before the envelope gets opened? And I mean, say like it's Meryl Streep who's going to win it. Do you think she's already been told?
I don't think so. I think that part's still left.
So the element of surprise is still there.
But they are actors.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
They could act as if they didn't know forever, couldn't they?
Yeah, but look at poor old Johnny Depp. He kept turning up for an Oscar and no one would give him one.
That's true.
And he was the only one that looked generally miserable about not winning. So.
But he always struck me as being a nice sort of guy. I don't know what he is like. I mean, what do you think? Is Johnny Depp a nice guy?
I think he seems a nice guy,
Yeah.
Didn't he throw a phone at his girlfriend or his...
That sounds fairly genuine.
Well, people do say that he's a genuine nice fella. And sometimes, you do get provoked, no matter if you're male or female, and you do throw things.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, look, you've not heard any bad press come out about Tom Hanks, and you've not really heard anything in regard to Johnny Depp until his wife of less than a year.
Amber Heard.
Yeah, well, that got settled out of court, like most things do, but still.
So have you got any tips from your own perspective? Who's going to win Best Picture? Who's going to be Best Male, Best Female Lead? What do you think?
Well, Goldman for sure. I think the Wind River is a long shot, I think, maybe. Right. But I don't know. Andrew Jolie, first They Killed My Father. That's a possibility, they're saying.
Might just catch up on a couple of those before the look at the show. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, what do you think of our shutdown with the Senate? This come right off the subject.
Well, this is it. Once that was shut down, the Republicans or the Republican Army, the Republican Party was actually blaming, obviously the Democrats. Yeah. The Democrats, they put the sole blame on them. So, what's the mood of America now?
Well, the civil servants are now getting paid, and all us people are just sitting there going, yeah, just another bit more drama in the Trump government.
See, I was listening to the news yesterday, and I couldn't believe how these Trump, former advisors to the president, they won't have any criticism said against them, and they're sitting there with big stupid smiles on their faces. And you just say what they are, Donald Trump.
Can I ask, Obama had a 16-day shutdown, didn't he, in 2013? During his presidency in his first term, wasn't it? Was it his first term or the second, the beginning of the second term?
Yeah, it was his second term.
Yeah, and he had a 16-day shutdown. So Trump's still got a few days left before he can beat Obama's record in terms of shutting the place down. It's all a bit nonsense, really, isn't it? The media go completely nuts and they say, Trump's shut down the thing, and actually Obama shut it down for 6. Well, he didn't himself, but it was shut down because he couldn't get an agreement for 16 days. That must have really knackered the country.
Yeah. I mean, always, no one gets paid.
No.
No.
I mean, what you're saying now is that the civil servants are going to get paid from now. Is that right?
Well, when any shutdown, no civil servants get paid.
Okay, got you.
Yeah. And, even he's been causing, the Jerusalem thing. I mean, what kind of worms to open up in Jerusalem? We're moving it from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem because it's the capital. You can't go saying that.
Do you know what I think he's doing? If anyone gives him credit for having any intelligence, so let's just kind of put aside any disbelief here. Let's kind of guess that he's got some intelligence. Maybe what he's doing is he's throwing in stupid things to distract us all, because we're so easily led into following a dead fish, thinking it's a real good one for a headline. Throws in this mad stuff because he's doing some really heavy stuff in the background which no one's going to see for a few months, like locking up some senior politicians for doing some really bad stuff. Maybe he's doing that. I'd like to think he is, because all this mad stuff's mad, isn't it?
I think he is, without a doubt. I think that is his mentality.
Yeah. So distract him with nonsense, throw in complete nonsense. I don't even think he does it deliberately. It's like, it's the way he is, but he doesn't care because it distracts people.
Do you know what I'll tell you what I can't make out, Joe, is that the likes of the president of Turkey, Erdogan, he's paging people at the moment, right now he's paging them. And that includes school teachers, reporters, television people, actors, actresses, just ordinary people who he thought that was involved in a coup. And there's thousands of them. And yet, they're all friends with him.
I know.
I can't understand that. I just cannot understand the politics today.
Well, yeah. I mean, the Middle East.
The Middle East
is just a mess, isn't it?
Well, it is a mess. Anyway,
At the end of the day, you just got to follow the money.
Well, this is it, and I think, well, Trump's always, well, look at his golden tower. Joe, we've come to the end, unfortunately. What would you like to talk about next week? And don't say Trump. How would you like to talk about, Joe? You know the devastation caused by the fire a few weeks ago?
Still going on now.
And it's still going. How would you like to give us an update on, houses being destroyed and how people must be still distraught?
Absolutely, let's do that.
On
the mud flows as well.
On the mud flows, yeah. So would you like to talk about that and give us an update?
Yes, of course.
Oh, Joe, thank you so much.
Till next time.
Till next week, yeah. Bye-bye now, Joe.
Bye, Joe.
Have a good day.
Bye,
And
Joe.
you, bye. Well, that was Joe, and I'd like to just thank David Johnson all the way over there in Colorado. I'd like to thank Derek Shelmerdine all the way over there in wherever he was Skyping from. My studio guest, which is Marc Anthony, and the wonderful Ed Gilchrist for being here with me and being a nuisance as usual and arguing and Liverpool getting beat, and obviously to the wonderful listeners and Alan Hodgson who keeps listening in. I keep forgetting to mention him. Anyway, John Colossi, Carol Littrot, Mo down there in Essex, wherever she is, and the rest of them, Mark David Kinnish, all of them who's been listening in, Greg Tolan's all the way down there, and it's only from me and Jason Pennington, my producer, the lads in here, to say a big thank you for listening in, and until next week, see you all. Take it easy. Bye bye now. Bye bye.